Hey there, everybody. Welcome to my first video of 2019. Yes, it's been a couple of weeks, and there's a reason for that. I've been doing some research on a project that I'm about to embark on, and this is going to be the only project going for 2019 because it's going to take all year to complete, so I don't need any side projects to distract me. So this is going to be strictly my only project for 2019. Don't know how many games are actually going to be on videos. We shall see. But it's a pretty lengthy endeavor. I've never tried anything quite like this before. I did do the 1987 Atlanta Braves on History Maker Baseball and played all 161 games of that. But this is a little bit different. This is Strat-O-Matic. And I know I've been doing the Pop 10 on Payoff Pitch for the recently released 2018 season. That was basically to get everybody familiarized with the 2018 cards and maybe get your juices going for opening day coming up. But that season, 2018, and the 10-team league and whatnot really is not my cup of tea. I mean, it's okay, but it's not something that drives me and really motivates me. Tenacious Earl on Tabletop Plus does a great job with it, and that's kind of his thing. He's kind of made it his own, and he does a great job with it. And it's something that really resonates with him, and it's great. I enjoy watching all his videos in that and following the league and so forth. But my big thing, I guess you want to call it, is I prefer to take one team and go through a whole season rather than trying to take 10 random teams and play them in a truncated season. I'd rather take one team, go through the whole season, take the ebbs and flows of the whole season, not use standard lineup, preset lineups, but just manage the way I would hope that they should be used and see how the fur flies. So what I've done is I went back to 1977, I was 12 years old in 1977, and that was pretty much my favorite season. It still is, even after all these years. If I had to pick one season that's my favorite, it's 1977. Great pennant races in all four divisions. In fact, the two teams with the two best records didn't even make the World Series, the Phillies and the Royals. What could have been World Series. But the teams that really resonated with me for some reason, I don't know why, maybe because they had been bad for a while and they got good this year, are the teams from Chicago, the Cubs and the White Sox. Particularly the White Sox. The White Sox really, for whatever reason, just stuck out to me as a good team to follow. They certainly could pound the ball. They weren't much on pitching and defense, but they could certainly pound the ball. So I decided to go ahead and play a 1977 Chicago White Sox replay. And I do have the computer season, so I will be keeping the stats on the PC. And maybe what I'll do is I'll play cards and dice on the first couple of games of each series, and maybe the last game of each series I'll play it on the computer. We'll see how that goes. I'm not putting any time frame on this other than getting it done before 2020 gets here. So that's what I'm planning to do. But then I thought, well, if I play the White Sox, then that means I'm strictly stuck to American League and I can't play any National League teams. And I love a lot of the National League teams in 1977. So I said, how can I remedy that? Well, look to the other Chicago teams. So I'm actually endeavoring to play both Chicago teams all the way through, 162 games. See how it goes. I'm going to play the first 30. I'm going to commit to the first 30 cards and dice and see where we stand. See if I'm still enjoying it. See if you guys are still enjoying it. And, see how things go. And then hopefully just cruise on from there. I think if I get through the first 30 and get my stats straight and get a groove going, I think I'll be all right. And I've been doing a lot of research on the 77 season itself, particularly on these two teams. And so what I'm hoping to do as we play the season is give you little factoids and tidbits about these two teams and the players on these two teams as we go along to maybe, you know, give you some insight maybe that you hadn't seen before, or if you're not old enough to remember the 77 season, maybe introduce you to these players for the first time, so you can maybe, you know, catch on to them and maybe keep an interest on those players. So in my research, what I've done is I went to eBay and I found this cheap paperback book. It's not usually that cheap on eBay, but I found a cheap used copy at one of these like Goodwill bookstores. It's called the Southside Hitmen, Story of the 77 White Sox. I just got it today, so I'll be doing a lot of reading on that. But it's certainly something that's going to help me, you know, kind of get my groove back on the White Sox and remember them as they, you know, they were back so far ago. You can see those kind of weird uniforms there. One thing is that Bucky Dent went to spring training with the White Sox, but then of course was traded to the Yankees, and Red Sox fans have been angry ever since. So I've got that book to research with. I also bought the April 2nd, 1977 Sporting News, and that's got some good info in here as well. Some articles from spring training, and then the opening day rosters for each team. I also got them on the PC, but just kind of gives you, I like reading the words of the sports writers at the time to know, you know, see how they were doing. It kind of puts me back in that period, and I think that's what's going to help me continue this, is to get my mind back into that period, to be 1977 again. I'll probably play some music from 1977 off and on throughout this, just to get people in the mood for 77. All right, the next thing I did is, and there's also another article I found, and you can Google this. I'm not sure if it was the Chicago Tribune or where it was, but if you Google memorable summer of 77, this will come up, and it talks about how it was a season of false hope for both teams because they started so well and then faded toward the end. I believe the Cubs faded due to injury. Bruce Sutter was injured, and I believe Rick Russell was injured, and I believe the White Sox just ran out of pitching. So that is there as well. If you've watched me play games on video, you'll know that sometimes I use notebook paper to keep score. Sometimes I use the payoff pitch score sheet. And then sometimes I use this little PDF one that a friend of mine gave me years ago. And I've always liked this style because it allows me to keep track of the fielding stats along with everything else. So I'm going to be using this sheet, this style sheet. It's two-sided. You can see I've already done a game over here just off the cuff. But two-sided. And so that's going to help me keep score. But I don't want 81 of these sheets laying around loose trying to keep track of what's going on. So I went to Staples and had them, I took 81 copies to Staples and had them bind these for me. I made my own little cheap, should have done color I guess, but I was in too much of a hurry. So this is my Chicago Cubs score book that I made up. Blue background, the White Sox one is a black background. But there are exactly 81 pages of score sheets within this that are binded in, so now I can keep everything nice and handy. They're two-sided, of course, so I only need 81 pages. But it's going to be very simple for me to keep everything neat and tidy. Then when I'm doing a game, I just fold it in half. And there's my score sheet right here for both teams. And I also had them make me one for the White Sox. And they were very cheap to make. It's less than $7 a piece to get this done. Of course, I provided all the paper. They basically did the binding and put the plastic cover sheet on top and the like stock paper behind it. So it was like $6.90 per book to get that done. But I think having these things more organized is going to also help me stay on track to keep this thing going and not let it fade away, so to speak. All right, so basically let me get down now to what I really had wanted to show in this video, and that was a meet and greet of the players to try to familiarize you, give you a first look at both teams. So, and I went to the computer and got the opening day rosters. Now I don't have Strat-O-Matic did not card every single player, but I try to get as close to the actual starting lineups on opening day, or starting 25-man rosters on opening day for each team as I could. Some players I had to pull from other teams, which is fine. And I'm only doing that for opening day. Once I get past opening day, then all bets are off. It's injuries times. Injuries will take over, and if I feel like a player is not doing well, I'll send him to the minors and bring up somebody else. So only opening day is when I'm tied to the roster and the starting lineups. Just going to be for opening day. Everything else is going to be at a whim that I want to do on the White Sox and the Cubs. Now the teams I'm playing against, I will try to use their opening or their actual as-played lineups as much as I possibly can, just so that, hopefully it's fair for that, because I'm not following those teams and keeping track of those teams. So we'll start out with the boys from the north side, or the south side. I think it's south side, actually. Yeah, south side, of course. The south side Hitmen. So we'll start out and we'll look at their catchers. And the two catchers they had on the team in 1977 opening day roster. First catcher is Jim Essien. Essien hit .273 with 10 homers. He was a 2 with a E4, so not too bad. A 0 arm, so pretty average on the arm. And if you're not familiar with what Jim Essien looked like at the time, that's a baseball card of Jim Essien. So Jim Essien is one of the catchers. The other catcher on the opening day roster is Brian Downing. Probably more familiar with him with the Angels, but he started his career with the White Sox. You can see he's not very good. He's a 3 with a +2 and E5. He also did play some outfield. And let's see, he hit .284. And that's a picture of a very young Brian Downing. All right. Go on to second base. Next batter, or next position player. And also there was an article, let me go pull it. There was an article in the Sporting News on this player by the name of George Orta. And the White Sox in '76 had played Orta in left field, and they were just saying that Orta flunks in left field and they face a dilemma. Well, they ended up moving Orta to second base, and of course the rest is history. Left field ended up being mainly done by Ralph Garr. So George Orta is the second baseman on this White Sox team, and if we look at his card, you see he's still not very good. 4 and an E23, but the dude could hit .282, 11 home runs, 8 triples. So certainly a solid production from the second baseman. One of the few good fielders on the team was Jim Spencer at first base. You can see he's a 1, and he had some pop too. 18 home runs, 69 RBIs, and that's Jim Spencer. Okay, next man up is another guy that can hit, and he was there for his offense, not for his defense. He was actually injured. He had some shoulder issues, so he had a hard time throwing across the infield, but they needed some offense, and they lived with his defense, and that's Alan Bannister. See, he's a 4 E48, so definitely a liability in the field, even at second or the outfield, same way. But he hit .275 and got on base at 335 clip. So for a shortstop, for them, that's what they went by. And there is a picture of Alan Bannister. All right. Next man up is at third base. And he had missed all the 76 season with injury problems. Came back strong in 77. That's Eric Soderholm, former Twin. He was a 2 E11, so pretty good defense. But then 25 home runs and 67 ribbies. Slugged .500, 350 on base, so pretty good there. 280 average. Eric Soderholm. And that is what Eric Soderholm looks like. Or looked like. All right, we'll shift to the outfield, and I've already mentioned this fella, but Ralph Garr, who ended up playing left field because Orta couldn't. but Gar was not very good either. He was late in his career, so he's a 4. He didn't have very good range. He didn't make many errors, but he didn't have very good range or good arm. But he did hit 300 with 10 homers and 54 RBIs, so that's why he was in there, because he could hit. And that's a picture of Mr. Ralph Gar. All right, next is a very young, and I mean very young, center fielder by the name of Chet Lemon, and he's pretty average, a 3 with a 0 and an E13, a little bit higher error rating than they would like probably, but 3 and 0 is pretty average. And he did hit 273 with 19 dingers and 67 RBIs. So there is a picture of center fielder Chet Lemon. All right, next up is a utility infielder by the name of Royal Stillman. Utility outfielder, I should say. Not in. Well, he did play first base as well, but he didn't play anything very well. He was there for utility, obviously at 210, so he was just kind of there taking up space, pretty much. But that's a picture of Royal Stillman, and he was on the opening day roster. Next up, I don't have a very good card for him. It's actually one of those old Hostess cards from the bottom of a Hostess Twinkie box back in the day. It's in very rough shape, but still legible to see. And that's Richie Zisk, because the 78 Topps card of Richie Zisk, he's with the Rangers, and the 76 Topps card, he's with the Pirates. So this is the only way I could find him on the White Sox. Richie Zisk. And Zisk, not very good fielder, 4, so not very good range, but again, he could ball 30 home runs, 101 RBIs, 290 average, so he's there for the slugging. Speaking of slugging, the guy with the big afro, Oscar Gamble, he mainly DH. You can see he did play the outfield, but not very well. And Oscar Gamble, 31 homers, 83 ribbies, 297 average. And again, I had to kind of put together something for Oscar Gamble because they didn't really have a card for him in 78 that was with the White Sox. He was with somebody else. Either that or I just don't have the card, one or the other. All right, another infielder. Big guy, Lamar Johnson. He's not a very good fielder either. He's there for the offense. And Lamar Johnson hit 302 with 18 homers and 65 RBIs. 18 home runs and only 374 at-bats. Slugged a 505 average. So Lamar Johnson, and that's a picture of Lamar Johnson. All right, backup outfielder, Wayne Nordhagen. He's also emergency catcher pretty much, but didn't really do a whole lot with it. Wasn't very good there. Defensive lots, he wasn't too bad. It was a 3 with a -1 arm, but an E16. But again, he had 315 in limited duty, so he's there for the offense, not the defense. And there is a picture of Mr. Wayne Nordhagen. So those are the position players that are going to start the season for the White Sox on the opening day roster. And now we'll go to our pitchers. Oh, check that. I got a couple more players for the White Sox that I don't have baseball cards for, but they are on the opening day roster. One is the veteran Jerry Hairston, and he's mainly a pinch hitter. On the season, he hit 192, but he was with the Pirates for the most part, but he started the season with Chicago, so I did get his card for that. And the other guy is infielder Tim Nordbrook. He finished the season with Toronto, so he ended up being carded with Toronto, but he wasn't very good. But he was on the roster, so I'm going to try to stay true to that, at least for opening day. All right, now we're going to our pitchers. And the guy who got the opening day assignment was later traded to the Angels, but he started the season with the White Sox, is left-hander Ken Brett. He pitched the opening day game in Toronto, and you can see he's carded with California, but he started the season with the White Sox. 13 and 14 combined total in 34 starts. Ken Brett, yes, he is the brother of George Brett. So he's one of the pitchers. He gets the opening day start. Next man up is Francisco Barrios. And big right-hander was 14 and 7, but he did have a 4.12 ERA. And that's a picture of Barrios. And I believe he passed away not much later than after this season. I don't know exactly when, but I think he's one of the players that was tragically lost his life in an accident of some sort, if I remember correctly. I'd have to do more research on that, but it's just off the top of my head. Next man up is probably known more as an announcer than a pitcher, and that is Steve Stone, former sidekick of Harry Carey with the Cubs, and now sidekick with Ken Harrelson, I guess. And in 77, he was 15 and 12 with a 4.51 ERA, and that's what Steve Stone looked like back in the day with the stash. All right, so the next pitcher left-hander, Ken Kravick, lefty, and he was 11-8 with a 4.10 ERA. So you can see the ERAs are not very good for the Sox. They try to pretty much pound people in submission and hope they did enough. There's a picture of Ken Kravick. All right, next guy up is right-hander Chris Knapp, and Knapp 12-7 with a 4.80 ERA. So not very good again with the ERA, but it was 12-7, which means he got plenty of run support. And that's a picture of Chris Knapp. All right, next man started the season on the disabled list, but I got to put him in because I'm short on pitchers unless I go to the Strat app, which I really would rather not do. So I'm going to go ahead and make an exception. I'll keep him out opening day, but after that I'm going to bring him on, and that's veteran knuckleballer Wilbur Wood. And Wilbur Wood 7-8 with a 4.99 ERA. And there's a picture of the elder statesman Wilbur Wood. All right, next man up. Go to the bullpen, and he's a part-time starter as well. Bart Johnson, a right-hander, 4-5 with a 4.01 ERA. He did have 4 starts, but he also had 2 saves, so kind of a swing guy. And there is a picture of Bart Johnson. Next man up was their closer, Laren LeGros. And LeGros had 25 saves on the season, 7-3 with 2.46 ERA, so pretty good. Right there, 99 innings and 81 hits allowed. So Laren LeGros, and there's a picture of Laren LeGros. Next man up is a lefty out of the bullpen, Dave Hamilton. Pitched for the A's in their World Series teams back in the early 70s. He's a lefty specialist pretty much. He did have 9 saves on the season, so he did obviously face more than just lefties. 4-5 with a 3.61 ERA. And there's a picture of Dave Hamilton. And the last man on the pitching staff for the opening day, I don't have a baseball card for him with the White Sox, but veteran Bruce Dow Canton, who pitched a lot for the Braves back in the day, Royals also. And he was 0-2 with a 3.75 ERA with 2 saves. Only pitched 24 innings, so he's going to probably be susceptible to injuries should they come up. So those are the 77 White Sox opening day rosters. So there you go. You met the White Sox. Now let's meet the Cubs. And then as we go forward, I'll try to be more specific with giving details about certain players. But we'll start out with the Cubbies. And we'll start out with center fielder Jerry Morales. He was a pretty good center fielder with 2 with a -3 arm. He wasn't bad with the stick. 290, 11 home runs, 69 RBIs. And that's a picture of Jerry Morales. All right. Another outfielder. He mostly was platoon because he hit lefties really well. That's Gene Kleins. He wasn't a very good fielder, but he could hit. See, he does pretty well here against lefties. He was with the Pirates in '71 when they won the World Series. And Kleins, 293, only had 239 at-bats because he was being platooned. But decent fielder, and but mainly was in there to face lefties. That's what he was there for. Next man up is a switch hitter that did not get a whole lot of playing time. He's one of the last guys off the bench, Joe Wallace. Was a pretty good fielder, though, 2 and -1, so that's pretty good for center field. He only had 80 at-bats and hit 250, so not much with the threat there, but maybe a defensive replacement. And there's Joe Wallace. He was a switch hitter for the Cubbies. Next up is the guy who might play left field when Gene Kleins is facing a right-handed pitcher. And that's Greg Gross. He's mainly known for being with the Astros, I guess, or the Phillies. But in '77, he was with the Cubs. Not a very good fielder, but he could hit. 322, so you can't go wrong with that when you're hitting 322. And there's a picture of Mr. Greg Gross. All right, maybe the most familiar of their outfielders, veteran Bobby Mercer, played right field. See, he did very well, 2 with a -2 arm. So try playing the infield, didn't go so well for him, but the outfield is where he belonged. And he had solid 265 with 27 homers and 89 RBIs, and actually stole 16 bases. So he definitely got the job done for him. And there he is, Mr. Bobby Mercer. All right, next guy is another guy with one of the big afros, and that's Jose Cardinal. He's definitely a veteran, been around for a while. Not very good defensively, but he could run and he could hit. So we look at his numbers. So actually, he had a, 20 had a pretty bad year that year, 239. That's why he only had 226 at-bats. 226 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 steal, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So 239 home runs, 1 walk, 2 steals, 1 base. So he probably didn't get a whole lot of playing time in 77. I think he was pushed out by some of the other guys, but he is on the opening day roster. I think he ended up going to the Phillies later on. Maybe not in this year, but I think in 78 he did. Next up, we go to the infielders, and one of the big acquisitions they made in the offseason of 76 to 77, was from the Dodgers getting Ivan DeJesus to be their everyday shortstop. He's a very good fielder, a 2. He's E36, but he's got good range. A lot of speed. You can see stealing there. He's got a good speed, and he can bunt. And he hit 266. He had 624 at bats. That tells you he was in there quite a bit. He did steal 24 bases. And there is a picture of Ivan DeJesus. Later went to the Phillies in 83 to be on that World Series team. A backup infielder. I believe he played with the Indians at some point. Dave Rozzello, not a very good fielder, but and he wasn't a very good hitter either. He was just kind of like plugging up space as a backup. That's what backups do. And there's a picture of Dave Rozzello. All right, their third baseman, switch hitter Steve Ontiveros, not very good defensively. Pretty good hitter though, 299, 10 home runs, 68 RBIs. So he's passable on defense, but not the best, that 4. And there's a picture of Steve Ontiveros. Again, he's a switch hitter. Now, somebody who was a great fielder is Manny Trio. Surprised they didn't give him a 1 on this. I thought he should have gotten a 1 based on his numbers, but they gave him a 2. But the Cubs were raving about what a great fielder he was. And let's see, offensively, he hit 280, 7 homers, 57 RBIs. So there's a picture of Manny Trio. All right, next man up is utility infielder Mick Kelleher. Played all 3 infield positions moderately well. Not much offense, 230, but he was there mainly as defensive replacement in case somebody got hurt. And there is a picture of Mick Kelleher. All right, next man up is part-time outfielder, part-time first baseman Larry Bintner. Distinction of 2 I's and 2 T's in his name. Not very good defensively, but he could hit. 298 average, 12 homers, and 62 RBIs. So there is a picture of Larry Bintner. All right, we'll go to the catchers. First catcher is George Mitterwald, a veteran. Played in the American League earlier, I believe, with the Twins. Maybe some other teams. He was a 3 and a 0, E3, so pretty decent defensively. Not much offensively, although he did have 9 home runs and 349 at bats, along with 22 doubles, so he did slug 378. Actually stole 3 bases. So there is a picture of George Mitterwald. Their other catcher, Steve Swisher. And again, he's not quite as good defensively. That's a 4. 0 arm and E7. Swisher, not much of a hitter, 190. That's why I only played 205 at bats. Did have 5 homers, but really he was just there as a backup catcher pretty much. And there's a picture of Steve Swisher. All right, so now that concludes the offense for the Cubs. Let's look at their pitching staff. We go to right-hander Ray Burris. Ray Burris, 14 and 16 with a 4.72 ERA. Gave up a lot of hits. Look at that, 221 innings pitched, 270 hits. So there is a picture of Ray Burris. Next starter is Bill Bonham. Bill Bonham, he was 10 and 13 with a 4.36 ERA. And there is a picture of Bill Bonham. Next is probably the most well-known of the starters, and that's Rick Russell. And Rick Russell, 20-game winner in 1977, 20 and 10, 2.79 ERA, even had a save in relief. So pretty good there. And there's a picture of the somewhat portly Rick Russell, although not in that picture he's not quite so portly, but when he got to the 80s, he got pretty portly. All right, he's also the guy that gave up the home run to Bo Jackson in the 89 All-Star game to start, led off the bottom of the first with that home run. Rick Russell was the pitcher for the Giants in that game. All right, next up is, speaking of the Giants, one of the Giants radio announcers, Mike Krukow. And Krukow on the season 8 and 14 with a 4.40 ERA and 33 starts. So there is Krukow. Sure, Mr. Krukow. All right, next fellow is has the odd distinction of playing for both of these teams. He started the season with the Cubs and then got traded to the White Sox, or sold, or one or the other. And that's Steve Rinko. So Steve Rinko, and Strat has carded him on both teams, so I've got separate cards for him. 2-2 with a 4.56 ERA. Did start 8 games and did have 1 save. So that is Steve Rinko. Next up is Rick Russell's brother Paul. Paul Russell, a relief pitcher. 5-6, 4.37 ERA with 4 saves, and I believe he probably saved some of his brother's starts. And that's Paul Russell. Next up is Mr. Willie, or Guillermo, don't call me Willie Hernandez. He was most famous for the '84 Tigers, winning the Cy Young in 1984 for the Tigers. But for the Cubs in '77, he was 8-7 with a 3.03 ERA and 4 saves. And that is Mr. Willie Hernandez. He changed his name to Guillermo later on. Next up is right-hander Jim Todd. Jim Todd, and Todd was 1-1. Look at his ERA, 9.10. So he's going to be tough to use. I'm going to use him in blowout situations most likely, or in desperate times when I run out of pitchers. And in fact, he ended up going over to Seattle, I believe in either late '77 or early '78, because his baseball card shows him with Seattle. All right, another Hernandez coming up, and that's Ramon Hernandez, another lefty. No relation to Willie. He ended up spending some time with the Cubs and then going to the Red Sox later in the season. Again, not very good, 0-1 with a 5.68 ERA in 13 innings pitched. Did have a save, which was okay, I guess. So there is Ramon Hernandez. And last but not least, the Hall of Famer, at least I think he is, or he should be if he's not, and that is Mr. Bruce Sutter. And Bruce Sutter, this was his rookie season. Check that, second year season. He was a rookie in '76. He was 7-3 with a 1.34 ERA and 31 saves. So look at that, 107 innings pitched, only 69 hits, walked 23, struck out 129. One of the outstanding seasons for any relief pitcher was Bruce Sutter here in 1977. And there is a picture of Bruce Sutter without the beard, but he did have the split finger pitch. So there you go. Those are the 2 teams and their players. Hopefully, if you had not heard of these players before, hopefully you are a little bit more familiar with them now. You've seen them, got a picture of them, what they look like back then. To many of you, these players are probably very familiar, but I always like to go at it with thinking that maybe people aren't familiar with them, or they weren't born yet, or whatever the case may be. Now, getting back to my score sheets. The score sheets I had bounded. The only downside to these score sheets when playing Strat is that there's not really a whole lot of place to put the defensive ratings. I can fit their name and their position in here, but I don't have a place to put their defensive ratings. So in an attempt to solve that, I used a little Excel program, and I did it for every team in the league. And what I did is I took the players and just put all the players that appeared that season and put their ratings in. So, in other words, let's say that I'm going to play the Cubs against San Fran. I won't need to write San Fran's ratings here. All I can do is pull their sheet out, and I'll have it here nice and handy. Gives me their error rating, or the range and their error ratings, and then same with the catchers, their throw ratings. If I don't list a PB, it means it was 0. And the outfielder range, you got all those there as well. So I did that for all the teams. I don't have the Cubs and White Sox in front of me, I don't think, but I did it for all the teams. So that will help me without having to worry about putting them on the score sheet here to keep track of that. And like I said, I do have the season on PC, so that will make for easy transition to keep score rather than trying to do it by hand. I'll just, once I finish each game, I'll go to the computer and use the direct entry or manual entry and put those in. And then what I hope to do maybe is, depending on how many videos, I'll probably just do the first game of every series on the video, and the others I'll probably play offline. And then before the next series start, maybe give a recap of what happened in the previous series. and after about maybe 10 games, start giving updated stats as to what's going on, so you guys can follow. Trying to think of what else to bring up or talk about. I think I've pretty much covered everything that's going on. Like I said, I do have the sporting news thing here. The one thing I don't have that I didn't mention, or I do have that I didn't mention yet, is I have quite a few 1977 baseball digests, so I'll be using those as well. I also have, it hasn't gotten here yet, but I've purchased them off eBay, the media guides for both the White Sox and the Cubs, the 1977 media guides, so I'm going to use some information off of that as well. I do have, if I can find it, let's see here. Got so much stuff over here, I don't know what to do with it. Got to find out where I put it now, that's the question. Because I have the schedule. I can find it, what I feel, here it is. So I do have the schedule, or at least the first 30 games, or first 30 days, for its, up through May 1st. I've got the schedule for the Sox and for the Cubs, who they're playing, whether it's a day or night game, because that's important when I'm rolling weather effects to find out whether it's day or night. It has the scheduled off days already there, so I'm going to play it along. We do have a doubleheader in Oakland on April 24th, so that'll be interesting to play. For some reason, the Cubs had 2 days off here. I'm assuming that's due to rainouts of some sort, so they'll be made up later in the season. But and I also have the other thing I forgot to bring out. I bought this a long time ago, and it's been sitting on a shelf. I'd almost totally forgotten about it. But I do have the what they call American League Red Book, 1977. And one of the things that this book has in it for each of the, not only the rosters, but it will also tell me on the fields the height of the fences. So I can know whether or not I can rob home runs or not, because I'm going to try to play robbing home runs and blocking the plate in this little replay, so I can try to be as authentic as possible. Because I know in 1977 I was watching the This Week in Baseballs with Mel Allen, and from 77 there was a couple instances where they did rob home runs, particularly Fred Lynn was robbed a couple of home runs, so I definitely want to incorporate that. So this is what I'm going to be doing. Now I may do a video off and on just to break up the monotony of another game, maybe an inside pitch game or a history maker game or something along those lines, just to break up the monotony. But as far as trying to do a project, this is it. This is my 2019 project right here. I think it's more than enough to keep my hands full. That you're talking about 162 games times 2, 324 games, something like that. Now again, the PC is going to help me on some of those, perhaps. But again, I'm not in any kind of rush, and Strat plays pretty quick once you get a rhythm on it. So my goal is to play, each game when the teams are scheduled to play the same day. My goal is to play both games on one day, so I can try to keep both teams with the same number of games, and I'm going to let the computer autoplay the other team's games, keep track of where they are. Like I said, I am using injuries, so we will be doing that. And let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. It's going to be super advanced, of course, with all the bells and whistles. The only thing I may not worry about is the cutoff stuff, because that gets really, really tedious. So I may just forego that, but I definitely want to include the robbing home runs and the blocking the plates. I think those would be decent, because back in '77 there was no rule about you couldn't block the plate. There were plenty of collisions, so I'm trying to be authentic, as authentic as I can to 1977. Again, I'm doing more research. I'm going to go back and read some of this book tonight, maybe, and see what they. I'll read more about these guys, and like I said, they're kind of in my mind, but I'd like to know more about them, maybe get some insights I didn't know before. So I think those can be pretty neat to do, and look at some of these old photos and kind of just take myself back to 1977. I can't be 12 years old again, but I can go back to 1977 in my mind's eye. And hopefully, like I said, 77 is a season that really resonates with me. I do have the DVD of the This Week in Baseball from 77. There are also a lot of those are on YouTube. You can watch those as well. But a while back I did buy the DVD, so I've watched some of those to kind of get my juices flowing again as well. What I plan to do before I start the regular season is play one exhibition game, one spring training game between the Cubs and the White Sox against each other, just so everybody can see both these teams in action and get familiar with their players. And then after that, it'll be opening day time. And for the Cubs, they'll be hosting Tom Seaver and the Mets on their opening day. And the White Sox will make that historic trip north to Toronto to take on the Toronto Blue Jays in their first ever game as a franchise. And like I said, I will play exact starting lineups for both those games on opening day, and then after that, I'm going to turn it over to rest and turn it over to injuries. And for my opponents, the teams I'm playing other than the two Chicago teams, I'll try to be as true to the real-life lineup as possible. But for the White Sox and the Cubs, I'll make my own lineups, my own pitching rotations, and allow injuries and rest to dictate some of that as well. All right, that's going to do it from here. It is Saturday night. Tomorrow is the conference championships in the NFL. I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan, so I definitely have skin in the game for that. Add to the fact I don't like the Patriots, that's double whammy. The NFC, I kind of want to see the Rams, but I don't mind the Saints either, so that one really doesn't affect me too much. Dallas is gone, Philly's gone, so I'm okay with that. Get some new blood in there. If New England gets in, it's just going to really not sit well with me because they've been there enough. It's time for somebody else to come along, and they're just like the evil empire to me. So hope everybody enjoys those games. And like I said, I'm recording this Saturday night, so this will be posted on Sunday morning or Sunday, probably late morning. So if you're watching this and you're finishing watching this, it's going to be getting close to kickoff for the NFC championship game. So that's going to do it from here, but I just wanted to put that out there. A couple people have asked me questions about where I've been and all that stuff, and it's like, no, I'm doing fine. It's just I'm boring head first into this and not having any other distractions of any other projects or any other games or anything. My free time in gaming is going to be solely put to these two teams and this project, and that is it. I'm not going to worry about trying to do any other projects of any kind. I'm not even going to buy the 2018 Strat season because I'm not going to have time for it. I'm digging into this. Like I said, I might play a random inside pitch game or something on video just to be different, but pretty much this is what it's going to be. And I'm thinking about doing a blog as well for people to follow along if they don't want to, or maybe follow along with things that aren't on video, something like that. I might put tidbits out of each of the players or something, rather than doing a video and all that stuff. I might put that on the web page. I got that from Earl too. He used something called WordPress, so I did set up an account on WordPress, and I've already written one long thing on there to introduce this. So eventually I'll put out the address to go find that should you be interested. Other than that, hope everybody had a great January so far, and there's been a lot of great videos that have been out there. I've been watching those since January 1st. I know Earl is doing his Indians win streak. That is Tabletop Earl. Tenacious Earl has gotten back into his 2.0, which I like to see. I like to see that TBL stuff. That's really, really good. He does a great job on it, and I like how he does the league and just runs the league. It's just a very nice thing to be able to watch and follow. You got Al Red Sox fan doing some videos out there. Ron Junket is doing a lot of videos out there. I did see that Strat Delaware has come up with a couple of videos here recently, so nice to see him back. You have Combat Painter doing some replays in Payoff Pitch. You've got Anthony at Bleacher Bun Gaming. He's doing some stuff with the game he created, a baseball game he created, and also some boxing stuff, if you're into that. I'm trying to think if I'm sure I'm missing somebody else that I should be remembering. I know ID Jester still does his videos and has them out there. And lately I've seen Tribe Fan. I've just subscribed to Tribe Fan. So I've seen he's put a few videos out, so I'm gonna go back and check some of those out. And I like to listen to the videos in the background while I'm working. So, or when I'm driving. Either way, it's just nice to have something in the background, and I like to see how other people do things, and maybe I can learn something from somebody or get some pointers or whatnot. Steve Tower's still doing his thing with History Maker Baseball or second season or some of the other things he's doing. So he's always out there and putting the news out and so forth. So it's a lot of great channels out there. I encourage you to support all of them and let them know what a great job they're doing and how much you appreciate what they're putting out there, because they are doing some work to put some things out there. I'm sure they're doing it out of a love for what they're doing, but it's still work nonetheless. I know this will be a labor of love for me. It's going to be a labor, but I'm going to enjoy it because I'm getting back to 77. It's kind of just, I've been wanting to do a 77 project for years now, and now's my chance. I figured now's the time to do it. Strike while the iron's hot, and it's in my blood. Strat was in my blood, and this replay is going to be in my blood. What I may do if I play the first 30 games from each team and I figure out that I just can't do both, then maybe I'll just pick one and do one. But my plan is right now, if I can do it, to do both. And hopefully the PC will help me by keeping the stats and auto-playing the games I'm not playing.